And Happy New Year to you all. It's 2017 and let's hope this year is going to be much better than last for many reasons, but that's a completely different conversation. Anyway, to start this year off with a bang, so to speak, is the first episode of the new series of Sherlock. Now, I mean, I know that's kind of a bold statement because they're not really series, are they? They're more like mini-movies. Obviously, once again, there's going to be 3 mini-movies in this new season of Sherlock, and the first episode is called The 6 Thatchers, obviously relating to Margaret Thatcher. Now, this is roughly based on a story by Conan Doyle called The Adventure of the 6 Napoleons. I've never read it. I've read a lot of Sherlock's books, or should I say the Tales of Sherlock Holmes, but I've never read this one. Maybe I should. It'd be a good idea to get this one read up as well, to see how it kind of balances with this new episode. Anyway, it's been a long time since we've seen good old Sherlock. Excuse this lighting, by the way. Everything's gone a bit bonkers here. I might just open the curtain a bit. One sec. That's slightly better. It doesn't look like I've got a halo above my head anymore. Yeah, so it's been a while. Obviously, we had last New Year 2016, we had the parody episode, I suppose. Can you call it a parody episode, where it was Sherlock back in Victorian age, and then obviously the so-called payoff by the end of the episode it was in fact that Sherlock was attempting to relate events with Moriarty to a crime that wasn't solved back in the Victorian age. I wasn't keen on that episode. In fact, it's been a long time since I've really truly got into an episode of Sherlock, to be honest. More so from season 1. Now this episode starts again with where we essentially left off. Moriarty's dead. Holmes is being investigated for the murder of that German chap who was in the final episode of the last series. I can't remember his name, but that was a brilliant episode. I really enjoyed it, apart from the connection to Mary. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to start with this, by the way. Unfortunately, this episode involves Mary's character thoroughly. Which by the end of the episode I wasn't particularly happy about. However, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, she dies in it, so if anything, I was satisfied with how her character ended up, you know. But yeah, what I essentially really enjoyed about this episode, let's say the first 45 minutes, was I got this passion back for appreciating this incarnation of Sherlock Holmes. His arrogance was back. He was back in the game, which he uses that line so many times in this episode. Holmes is back in the game. He wants to keep that brain going. Mycroft and the English government have doctored the video footage of when he shot the German guy to make it look like he didn't shoot the German guy, so he's not going to be vindicated for it. Excuse me, because the sun's gone down again. Have you noticed that? I don't know. Anyway, so how did I feel regarding the plot? Now, I love espionage. I love government conspiracies. I do, but I don't appreciate these government conspiracies within a Sherlock-based environment. I'd much rather Sherlock investigate these murders, these serial killers, these, you know, this essentially small character involved in these horrible acts. I like that, and that's where Moriarty kind of transcended that. Not this Moriarty, by the way. I'm on about the Moriarty throughout, you know, Sherlock mythology. Is Moriarty was the supervillain throughout Sherlock Holmes. And yes, I don't like the actor who played Moriarty in this Sherlock series of mini-movies. However, at least they captured the idea of Moriarty. Now, where I'm going with this is, for the majority of this episode, it felt like Holmes was out there and he'd found this wonderful case for him to get involved in. But as the episode goes on, we then begin to realise that it is this international issue going on with MI6 and a mercenary group. However, then it becomes personal, and that's another thing I never really enjoyed about this idea of Sherlock. Everything just becomes very personal, and that sort of went down the drain when Mary came into the story. Really, it's fine that John Watson found a spouse. It's fine that he got married, but then the fact that she turned out to be this professional spy, and again in this episode it is about her and her history of being a spy, stroke mercenary, gun for hire for governments and so on. And I could almost hear the sigh in my son's, attitude towards this, because he was like, oh, this is just dragging on. Isn't that true, Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, we don't need this personal thing. I mean, was it a send-off for the Mary character because she'd essentially been brought into this world, this family of Sherlock, and this was the best way to send it off? I mean, it's interesting because before it started, the irony is that the lady who plays Mary, I can't remember her name, but she's actually married to Martin Freeman in real life, and prior to this, they'd actually split up in real life, and she gets killed off in this episode. And more importantly, there's a part of this episode where their marriage is in trouble, which I thought was kind of interesting. Now, I'm going back to what I said a minute ago about the little person creating this kind of situation, and the orchestrator of everything that happens in this episode is the little person. And for me, that connected incredibly well for the first 45 minutes of the episode. It's like, who is the person who orchestrated all the events that happen in this episode? And it's actually just the little person. And I really like that. So for me, that was a good payoff. And I like the kind of mono attitude that they've still kept with Holmes and the villain. So it's all about talk, and it's all about Holmes finding out why this person chose to set off these chain of events. And I like that. It goes all the way back to that first episode with the taxi driver, where the taxi driver is all about saying that I can get away with it, and that's why I did it. I mean, in this case, the villain did it because they were sick of being unappreciated. Maybe that's the same thing. I don't know. It depends how you look at it. Now, what I will say about this episode is, and about all Sherlock episodes, is that the production value is bordering on brilliant, really. I mean, they've spent some serious cash and they've got some brilliant artists to make this episode. The transitions, the writing from Mark Gatiss, of course, and just the general production and the direction was pretty much spot on, and you cannot deny that. And what it also does, this episode in particular, is that it starts where it ends. And Sherlock himself, his journey is about facing death, and how long is his life going to go on for when he really does look death in the face and he realises there's just no escaping death. And I really like that. And now in this episode, in regards to his journey, he starts questioning his own arrogance, thinking that, am I too arrogant? Do I need to be brought down a peg or two? And there is a line where he says to Mrs. Hudson at the end, and he says, if you ever see me become too arrogant, please just mention this one particular word to me and that'll bring me back down again. And I like that. I like Sherlock's journey. Now, taking that into account and everything I've said about, the personal situation, the Mary factor and so on, this episode could have been on for an hour and it would have been flawless. Josh made a brilliant point. Why couldn't it have just been a Moriarty situation? Why couldn't have he orchestrated everything that happened in this episode prior to his death, and that would have kept Sherlock guessing? And these last 3 episodes of Sherlock, if it is going to be his last 3, would-be Sherlock still dedicated to the cause of solving Moriarty, whether he's alive or dead. And I was really hoping for that. More so because Moriarty's not in it anymore, because I hate that guy. So, but the idea of Moriarty is still there in Sherlock's mind, and I really wanted this series to continue with Sherlock's investigation into the mind of his equal, essentially. In a way it did, in a way it doesn't. There is a moment which really irritated me, and it was right at the end, and Mrs. Hudson and Sherlock are talking, and she's got some post, and he's like, "What's this?" And he opens the envelope, and it says "Miss Me" on it, which is, of course, Moriarty's line. And I'm thinking, oh, thank God they're going to set up the next episode. But it wasn't. It wasn't a setup for the next episode. All it was Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary talking about Sherlock, about saving John, about life going on. And I'm like, oh, give me a break, please. And again, that kind of brings me down again to why this series of Sherlock stories really... I can't help just get irritated with them, because it's all just a bit too personal, and it's just all about the people that Sherlock affects in his life through, you know, he's dragged them along, they're caught in his wake, and he's eventually going to hurt everyone. Or they're going to get hurt because of the events involved. And yeah, that really, really irritated me. But that doesn't change the fact I'm glad it's on telly, and I'm glad it's back, because it's been a long time since we've had to watch it. And it's funny because you know, you don't really miss something till it's gone, but in this case, and this reminder of Sherlock kind of is reminding me how much I have missed it, and that's really interesting. I mean, this is a completely different point, but over the past year of not watching Sherlock, I've actually watched the American counterpart, Elementary, with what's his face in it? Lucy Liu and Johnny Lee Miller, and I absolutely love them. But that's another time. That's another video, which it'd be a good idea to do that video. Actually, I think we'll do like a comparison between John Lee Miller and Cumberbatch. Right, which brings me on to the cast, and Cumberbatch nails it. You can almost tell that he's been looking forward to playing this role again. You know, of course, he's done Doctor Strange, and he's done the Intimidation Game movie, which was pretty good. But you can just tell that he's home and he's back in England and he's making Sherlock. And I loved his enthusiasm when he's doing this role, and I really, really enjoyed that. Interestingly enough, Martin Freeman wasn't as irritating in this episode as he has been in previously. I mean, the funny thing is, he has been in the background because of this storyline of having a daughter with Mary. He has, this episode, he kind of takes a step back, and I accepted him more. Until later on in the episode, where we start delving into the Mary factor, which kind of irritated me. However, what I will say is, spoiler alert, when Mary gets shot, it's probably the best acting that Martin Freeman has ever done. She gets shot, and he starts growling and getting angry, and the fury inside him. And that is, I can safely say, the best acting Martin Freeman has ever done. And I've seen him in a lot of stuff, and everything he's been in, he essentially plays the same part. I am Martin Freeman. I am droll. I am an English droll person. In fact, even in Civil War, he played an English person doing an American accent, being droll. So it's good to see Martin Freeman actually act. Now, Mary, I didn't mind her character being there, you know, as part of that background of Sherlock, you know, with John. I didn't mind that. And it was acceptable, because we've been introduced to this character, we've been through her backstory, and I'm happy to see her on screen. That's fair enough. But the fact that it all tied in with this whole mercenary group thing that she had in her past, a bit... I kind of enjoyed the storyline, but I just wish she wasn't part of it. You know? I mean, the events involving this mercenary group was quite good, but the fact that it was all part of her and so on irritated me a bit. But she's an alright actress, and she sort of plays the role okay. Apart from when she has more than 2 lines in succession, and then I get a bit annoyed of listening to her talk, to be honest. Now, Mycroft, Mark Gatiss, he's obviously back in it, because he wrote it, and I always liked Mycroft's character. He does a brilliant representation of the idea of Mycroft. I mean, he's obviously clearly just as intelligent as Holmes. He just chooses when and where to use this intelligence. And at the end of the day, he is like a master of the universe, Mycroft is, really. Now, regarding the rest of the cast, everyone really plays their part perfectly well. And there's great little plot twists where you get these odd little cameo, no, I wouldn't say cameos, but these supporting actors coming in and out, and they all perform their role perfectly well, especially when they've got Holmes to bounce off. And you can just tell that they're really happy to be in this episode of Sherlock, and you know that they're really indulging themselves, so to speak. But all in all, I'll just wrap it up now, is I really enjoyed this episode. I mean, at least for an hour. An hour of content in this episode was bang on, and that's why I really enjoyed it. The music's great, the script is great, the screenplay is great, and like I say, the production value was bordering on brilliant. So yeah, I'm glad it's back, and I'm looking forward to next week. Really, it's interesting because while I was watching, I had a thought in my head, because these are on for like an hour and a half at a time. Wouldn't it be good if they had like played one every month, and then you can get like a couple of weeks to think about the episode, and it gives you a chance to digest everything that's going on. And treat it like a film, you know? I just feel like we're going to be drowned in Sherlock for the next 3 weeks, and that'll be the end of it. That's it. That's all we've got to do. That's all we've got to watch. Fortunately, Elementary's back on, and I can watch that every week as well. So, anyway, guys, if you watch this video, let me know what you thought of the episode. How much of a fan are you of Sherlock? Are you an Uber fan? Do you accept Mary Watson? Are you happy she's gone? Are you happy she should have stayed in it? Or do you have an opinion like me where you just think, kind of feels like there's no point in her being around, and I really wish to just get on with it, you know, and the mystery of the universe from Sherlock Holmes's point of view. Anyway, guys, thanks very much for watching. Always a pleasure, never a chore. Click subscribe if you want to see more. I'll see you next week anyway if you're going to watch this review. Peace out, and I'll see you next time.